Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our study of Ruth and some of my thoughts on Ruth. Today, we're gonna dive into Ruth 3, which is kind of exciting. The plot is really going to thicken now, so it's going to be cool. One thing that I did want to mention today that I probably should have mentioned a long time ago is that sometimes I've been reading these scriptures from what's called the New Living Translation, and my Bible that I use a lot of different Bibles, and this one is one that I use a lot called the Life Application Study Bible. You can tell I use it a lot. Look at all the duct tape on the side. But anyway, this one is called the Life Application Study Bible, but it says at the bottom NLT, which simply means New Living Translation. Different Bibles have been translated by different people and in different ways. So some Bibles are more modern language, some are more informal language, some are more formal, archaic language. And the main thing is you want a Bible that was translated directly from the, um, the Hebrew and the Greek. There are also paraphrased Bibles, which are more translations they try to get the concept, but they may not be the exact word for word translation. Sometimes those Bibles can help us a little bit to understand something, but we don't want to rely on them the way we would a Bible that's been translated word for word. And some Bibles have been translated from other Bibles, and so they don't go back to the original Hebrew and Greek. The other Bible that I use sometimes is the NIV. It's New International Version, or I might read from the New American Standard Bible. Or if I read anything from the Message, which is much more of a modern Bible, let's say, things are not listed by verses, things are more paragraphs of information, and they're written more like a novel. If I use that, I usually mention it because I only read that Bible usually to kind of help me understand meanings of things, just to see how it's expressed in a different way by a different translator. So, for right now, we're going to read Ruth 3, and we're going to start with verse 1 and go to verse 7. And I might stop here and there and say a few things about whatever hits me. So one day, Ruth's mother in law, Naomi, said to her, "My daughter, I must find a home for you where you will be well provided for." When she says, "I must find a home for you," what she's really talking about is a husband. Because in those days, women could not have really any security at all without a husband, without a man of some kind in the family to take care of them. So when she's saying, I got to find a home for you that's going to be more permanent, she really means a marriage. Now, Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. There we go again. She's bringing up the fact that he could be their redeemer. Because again, she doesn't just mean relative, she means a close male relative. And a close male relative would be able to redeem any property or position that Elimelech had provided in his marriage to Naomi. So, so she says, "Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor." I'm stopping there only to say that, remember, the harvest took place in the daytime. The threshing was then done at night because they wanted to save their daylight hours for harvesting the grain. And the threshing process was a crushing of the wheat to separate the chaff, which would have been thrown away, from the actual grain that was useful to be milled into flour. So he would have been there on the threshing floor, which would have been probably a hard floor. And for some reason, he stays overnight there. I don't know why. Maybe he was afraid people were going to steal, or maybe he was thinking he would just wait there until it was his turn to do some of the threshing. At any rate, he's going to stay there and sleep there. So Naomi obviously knows this. It must have been common practice. So she says, "Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor." Now she gives Ruth some very specific instructions about how to get ready for this thing she's got planned. "Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know you're there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, Note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do." "I will do whatever you say," Ruth answered. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am your servant Ruth," she said. "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are the guardian redeemer of our family." So, we're thinking here that Naomi has really concocted quite a plan, hasn't she? Some of the things we see in here, first of all, we see Ruth is very loyal, very obedient. She does respect her elders, and she respects Naomi and thinks Naomi probably knows more than she does. So notice she says, "Get ready." I thought that was really interesting. It's not just go and find this kinsman redeemer. It's first of all, do the preparation that's necessary to get everything set up the right way. And I think that's true with so much of what God wants us to do. There are things we have to do to prepare to do God's will. And so even when we're not sure what he wants us to do, we can get busy and prepare. We can get ourselves ready. We can read the word. We can pray. We can find other Christians to talk with. We can read books. There's so much we can do to get ready for whatever God is going to do in our future. So, second of all, she obeys Naomi, and you and I, when we read this, we think of seduction. We think Naomi's saying, "Hey, go in the middle of the night to this guy and lay down with him." Whoa, scandal. And there probably would have been scandal. We find out later there would have been scandal if people had seen this, but this was not a seduction. This was simply servanthood, humility at its very, very lowest. This was Naomi's way of having Ruth not only just tell Boaz that she wanted him for a kinsman redeemer, which meant he either would have married her or found someone to marry her. But second of all, this was an object lesson. This was more than just words. This was showing her humility in a very real way. And notice what she says. "I am your servant." That's what she says. When he asks, "Who are you?" "I am your servant Ruth," she replies. Now, how did she know? How did he know that she was a servant? Part of it was feet. She was down at his feet. And I find that very interesting because here we are in Holy Week, and we're thinking about all the things Jesus did as he prepared for Holy Week, prepared for doing what he needed to do to save us. And at that time, 6 days before Passover, this is in John 12, verse 1, 6 days before Passover. So we're only a couple of days before Passover ourselves, because we're heading right into Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter Saturday, and Easter Sunday. So we're almost at the exact same time that Jesus was. And he went to visit his friends in Bethany where Lazarus lived. Here a dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Martha served while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table. Then Mary took a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume. She poured it on Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. Mary does a very humble thing here. She wants Jesus to know how much she adores him, how much she realizes that she needs him, that she cannot save herself, that here is her Messiah. And where does she do this? On his feet. Because that's how they showed that kind of humility. Later on, the same week, Jesus uses the symbolism of feet when he washes his disciples' feet. Now it's even closer to Passover. This is John 13, verse 1. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. That's important. Jesus knew he was God. He was from God. He was returning to God. He understood that he had all the power in the world. And what did he do with it? He got up from the meal. He took off his outer clothing and wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. In verse 12, he continues, when he'd finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I've done for you? He said. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash another's feet. I have set an example that you should do as I have done for you. Feet, the very symbol of humility and servanthood. That's what Jesus wanted his disciples to understand about his servanthood, his sacrifice, that as powerful as he was, he still could be a servant. And that's what Ruth is trying to tell her Savior. She's trying to say, I'm laying myself at your feet. And it's a wonderful image for each of us right now in this turbulent time to lay our hearts and our feelings, our hopes, and everything we have at the feet of Jesus. He is the one with the power, and he's the one we have to depend on. I hope you have a wonderful Holy Week, and I hope this sets the tone for all the kinds of things you'll be thinking about this week as we celebrate these upcoming events to our reminder of Jesus' death and resurrection. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.